Welcome back to my channel. Today is Sunday, October the 11th, 2020, and we're going to continue with completing my painting of the St. Peter's Parish Church. If you recall, last week we would have looked at mixing colors for grey and completing the road. So now today we're going to take a look, as I have decided to look at the foliage. So stay with me, and when we come back we're going to take a look at working on your foliage and some techniques on how to complete this. Don't go away. Welcome back. Now you see here I have my piece, and today I want to work in this area in particular. If you see the greenery or the trees behind here, I want to push this back a little bit, and I want to define this section here a little more with the sky holes and everything, elements of blue coming through. And also the background is muted. I want to kind of leave it this way, don't interfere with this too much, but at the same time just give hints of foliage through the texture just playing through at the background. So I just want to keep this muted in the background, and I want to just put some definition on some of the leaves from a palm tree behind here. And if you see, I already added some pink flowers to existing foliage here, which the contrast in terms of complementary colors, the red, the pink versus the green, gives it that nice contrast and feel, and it stands out. So I don't want to have the foliage here competing too much with each other, but at the same time I want to deepen this. And if you look at green is one of the wider ranges of the color spectrum. If you look at the electromagnetic spectrum, and we have so many variety of greens, ranging from yellow greens, blue greens, you name it, all kinds of greens we have. So to make your paintings interesting, it's always good to diversify your greens in the composition, and even use some artistic license and creativity to do this. And that will all make your paintings interesting and colorful. Remember, living in the Caribbean adds to a colorful experience. We see it in our carnivals or festivals or celebrations. So why not put it in our paintings? And we can use artistic license to do this. I am certainly going to do it. So if you see here, I'm going to work on my foliage and show you some techniques. I have a medium-sized to small brushes. I don't need a large set of brushes to do this, but what I do need really is like a variety of types of brushes in terms of the texture. You see I have my fan brushes here, and I have also my regular, this is a number 2 brush that I would use, and this is a number 2 as well, but this is a finer brush from a different brand that I will use to add in some details and refine some details in the leaves, etc. Now you don't have to paint every leaf as people do, but you just give suggestions or gestures in terms of making your foliage look convincing. So when we come back, I'm going to actually work on this, and as I work I will speak to it, that you can have an idea of what I'm doing in terms of blocking in my foliage. So we'll be right back with the painting. Before I begin, let me introduce you now to the range of my colors. Starting from my right here, I have some titanium white into some cadmium yellow, some ultramarine blue, some crimson red, some viridian green, and some sap green. And I also have over here a small assortment of brushes along with my medium cups on my palette. So these I will be using today to work on the section of my foliage, the brushes and the color. So I'm now going to start to work on the section here that I said I would work on in terms of the tree behind. In this section, the tree behind these trees in the front, the trees with the flowers and the tree with the yellow greens. And I somehow want to push this tree back a little bit. So I'm going to just get a little bit of turpentine and just to get this vehicle mixed with a ratio of linseed oil, and I'm going to make a bit of a blue-green because ultramarine, I mentioned in the previous chapter, has some sense of transparency, and I'm going to mix that with some cad yellow and a little bit of sap green to make it really dark. And the beauty about the blue is that it tends to push ultramarine blue things into the background, make things recede. And the trick about it is that yellow makes things come forward and appear to come forward. So if I apply my paint here, you see immediately I'm beginning to get a sense of separation and depth with this green. Of course, considering my light source coming from somewhere above, so that is why I'm applying it first into this area where it is turning away from the light, or the form of the tree is turning away from the light. And I'm applying a deeper application of a blue-green mixture on here, and it will give it depth and recede it into the background. And then on top of this, I can add my lighter values and make it for a very interesting foliage behind here. I always enjoy the process of doing this and learning my way, because it's all about learning. Every artist has a different approach, and we can always learn. We are always the students of art, and I'm always open to learning from master artists and other artists. But the point is, in painting, is to enjoy what you're doing and have a love for art. Enjoy the art, enjoy what you're doing. I'm covering up this sky hole here for a bit, but we will soon come back to that. And we just want to get some depth and distinction in this section of the foliage here as I paint along. And I think you're already beginning to see that happen. And it really feels nice to have medium going into the canvas. It's actually good to feel this happening. It's a very nice feeling for those people who paint. They can share that experience with you and tell you how beautiful it is to do. Now I have done that now and laid a dark background to which I can now build upon. If anybody know about building, I've laid the foundation now to establish my lighter values and bring some variety into my foliage over the top here. So I'm now going to go about and start using some little dabbles of paint to, try to delineate and give suggestions or hints of leaves breaking away and breaking off from the foliage itself, to give it that distinction and that feeling of, or that illusion of leaves coming off a tree. Now you're not supposed to paint every individual leaf. It would take an entire year to do, I would imagine, but just give a suggestion or an illusion of this that you can really build upon. And it makes, I'm going to vary it now to put some areas here now, suggesting to give it that depth and that roundness that it is calling for here in the piece. You see, I'm already working with a different variety of green here. I've mixed up a little bit of white, some cadmium yellow, and I've also mixed in a hint of blue, and just not to get away too far from the values, and going about just establishing this here, looking at where my light source is coming, because the nearer the object is, the leaves to the light source, the lighter it will become, and therefore then when it turns form away from that, I'm going to darken here a little bit. It will obviously get a little darker as I'm beginning to blend my colors here and suggest here. Just give it some roundness and diversity, and that is what we're all about in terms of painting. So we already begin to see it taking a different form, having a little more body to it as I continue to build upon this, and getting that nice sweet feeling as I would apply a bit of sap green here now into these areas and dabbles to, just get that distinction going here. It's such a sweet feeling to do this. Give it some body, give it some depth already here happening. Painting is such a beautiful experience. I feel the whole world should pick up painting as if not a professional hobby, but it's something worth really experimenting and working with. It's one of those true beauties in the arts that we strive to do. So I've just established there and brought a little more roundness to this tree here. And I'm beginning to feel pretty good with that. I will circle back to it, but it's always good to move around your canvas and look for other areas. I'll just bring a wash to my brush here, and it's always good to look for other areas where you feel you can add some distinction to. So I have just completed this section here, relatively very satisfactory in my opinion. You know, just some minor touch-ups from this now. I'll just let it set a bit, but I just want to move on now to this area over here, which has a different kind of yellow-green texture and feel, and it's very sweet, this area with the palms. So I just wanted to touch on this area a little bit, and finally up here I will just close with just some suggestions for you to see. I will continue working, but just some suggestions for you to see. I would have grabbed, go back to the other brush, I would have grabbed a bit of yellow green here and did some stratifications into the foliage. You know, just some little accents. You don't want to be doing too much overworking of your piece. It's not always good to overwork a piece. Just go with little guides and little touches in little areas here where you get accents of yellows and interest where the light falls. And it is always a good idea to make interest like that. So you just need bits of suggestions. The masters are really good at it. Vermeer, Rembrandt, Van Rijn, and even our local masters, William Branch, for example, Frank Taylor, Omawale, Neville Legal, those people who paint light. So I just wanted to show you that you can continue with these suggestions. And then for up here now, I would have had my fan brush where I loaded it with, again, with some pigment. Remember, you're a painter. And I would do some dapples. The good thing, you could customize even your own brushes, make different cuts and shapes to suit your interests and the kind of effects you want. So with the traditional fan brush here, I would have just made some dapples to suggest and hint on individual leaves, because you're not going to paint an individual leaf really. Well, some people might like that, but it's always good to suggest. Art is an illusion. You're like magicians, painting magicians, and it's always good to suggest these things. So I just dabbled on the highlights. So it's just giving me the feeling that there are individual leaves going on just by mere dabs at certain strategic areas. So I'm going to continue to work in this vein, and then for this section, I wanted to keep it muted, but just give some hints of interest and texture if you would have stand close to the piece. So for here, I just, at certain strategic areas, would have made a few highlights and dabs that for a person standing close, you can still see touches of foliage receding into the background, but yet at the same time, not overpowering and competing with the leaves in the medium and foreground. So it's always good to give your paintings a sense of depth in 3 dimension in terms of foreground, medium ground, and background. That gives it atmosphere. So I just want to close here in the interest of time, and also wish you a safe week, and join me again as we look at another section. I think I'm going to go for the figures this time around and put in the details, and then perhaps even the lampshades, and close off with the building. That's my way of thinking now. Like change next week, but that's what I'm thinking I'm going to do. But the painting is coming along nicely. I'm feeling good about it, and I just want to thank you for sharing this time with me. And I want to always encourage you to paint and be safe. You know the times we're living in, but be safe and be motivated. Don't let it get on top of you. So this is a wonderful activity to get through this. So have a safe, nice, and pleasant week. See you next time. Bye for now.